Today, again, we are using the Sweet as a Peach bundle, as well as the You're a Peach Designer Series paper. One of my very favorite sweets for summer cards. And if you'll remember a couple weeks ago, this is the center Easel card that I demonstrated how to make. This card is actually going out to Shanda Williams. She was one of the winners of one of the two cards I made that day. And the blog post on this will be published later today. I've just got a couple finishing touches on the post. So let's get started right away. Put those things off to the side. I'm going to use this for my first card. And I'm actually going to show you that a variation on the center easel card by making a slimline card. And this, okay, this is not working. I'm sorry, I'm distracted. So I made a little template, but I am going to show you how to cut and score your card base properly, and then how to put that center easel card together. So I'm starting with a piece of balmy blue cardstock, and when I make my slimline cards, I start with a piece of cardstock measuring 8.5 by 11 inches. Then I put it in the horizontal position and I cut it to 7 inches. So now I have 7 inches by 8.5. I'm going to scoot this over to the 3.5 inch mark and score it vertically. And this becomes my slimline card. And it can go either direction, of course. But for the center easel card, I'm actually going to cut 1.5 inch flaps on each side of the card front. So to do this, I'm going to put the one edge at 1.5, or you can do it on the other side as well. But this time I'm going to go 1.5, and I want to cut it from the front edge or the bottom edge to that 3.5 inch score line. Now I can pull up and stop where the blade is there, but I'm going to show you a different way today. Remember, there are those lines that are etched into the plastic of the cutting blade. So I want to line that up with my score line, and then I can just push down my blade. It's real easy, and then cut. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And if you need to flip around and do it at the bottom of your paper trimmer, you can do that as well. I've lined up that etched line on the holder of my cutting blade right with my score line again, pushed it down and cut. Now I want to fold back those two small flaps, and I know that this now measures 5.5 by 3.5 inches across, and I'm going to score this in half. Half of 3.5 is 1 3/4. So now I'm going to score 1 3/4. Let me put this to the side until we do the second variation. So this is what I have. Here's my score line, and this is how I'm going to form that center easel slimline card. I'm going to add a piece of basic white, and my finished card is going to be 3.5 by 8.5. For the white, I'm going to make this, and I really only need it because I'm going to close these up, and I'm going to put a white insert right here. So let me do that first. If you don't want to adhere the flaps, you don't have to. But the way I'm making it, having the flaps open up really doesn't serve a purpose for me. I'm not adding anything to the inside right there. If you'd like to add something to the inside under those flaps, please do, and then do not adhere them. Now I can tell you that the inside of this measures 5.5 by 3.5, just like I said that flap was. I want to make it just a little bit smaller. So I'm going to make it 5.25 by 3.25. So it started at 5.5 by 3.5. I'm going to make it 5.25 by 3.25 for my basic white insert for the inside of the card. I'm going to go ahead and adhere mine. I'm not going to stamp in the middle because I have, or in on the inside of the card, because I have a different plan. Just like that, nice and straight. And then I've decided that this is the sheet of designer series paper that I'm going to use to decorate the front. I'm going to use both sides of it. I'm going to start with 3.25 by 1.25 inch pieces for each of my sides. So I will need 2 of those. So I'm going to set this at 1.25. And then I'm going to cut at 3.25 inches twice. So that'll be my side pieces. And then I want to cut my DSP for here. So each of these would measure 1.75 by 5.5. So I think I'm going to make mine, let me think about this. I think what I'm going to do is cut mine the same size as the white and then cut it down the center. So, and I want to flip to this other larger peach print. And I'll start by cutting it at 5.25 inches wide by 3.25 inches. And then I'm going to cut this in half as well. And half of 3.25, let's see, is 1.5, would be 3, so 1 5/8 would be the center. Now let's add all of these pieces of designer series paper to the card front. Oops. On that easel, center easel card that I showed you, that I made on a Facebook Live a few weeks ago, I used small borders or small mats, like 1/8 inch mats. And this time I'm going with the 1/4 inch cuts to have a little bit wider margin around all the DSP. Now when I adhere these 2 other pieces of DSP, I want them to look like one when the card is closed. So that means this bottom piece will go right up to the fold line on the top. Got some glue on my fingers there. But it will have the nice even spacing on the left, right, and bottom. Then I'll do the same spacing on the top, right, and bottom. of this other piece of designer series paper and push the bottom right up to the fold line. I'm not going over the fold, so it really looks like one piece, but I don't want it either side hanging over the fold, because then when it folds up, I would not have a nice looking fold there. But I think this way it looks really pretty when it's closed and the receiver of your card opens it, pulls it out of the envelope. And now I'm ready to add something more to this. Now I do need something to hold this easel part in place. So I've decided that I'm going to stamp the word happy birthday, and I'm going to stamp it in the, I think I'll use Balmy Blue. Or should I use Calypso Coral? I think I'll use Balmy Blue. Not quite straight. I'm going to flip it over and try again. There we go. I'm going to trim off a little on each end, but I'm going to leave just enough that I can trim the ends with my banner pick-a-punch. And of course, you know it's called the banner pick-a-punch because it punches two different ends. You get to pick which end you want to do. And I'm going to do this one. Looks good. And then, whoops. Do that. It's not quite even. I think I'm going to go back in just a little bit and take a little bit more off that one end. Another way you can do this is to actually, whoops, where are you? You could actually punch your ends first, and because we're using a photopolymer set that you can see through, you could punch your ends first and then center the stamped sentiment in between. Actually, here's my one that's, I still could cut a little bit more off that. Yes, I am kind of particular about that kind of thing. I am a pretty much a detail-oriented person. Yeah, now it looks like a little too much. Let's try again, Mary. This time I'm going to cut and punch first, and then I can center it. Guess I should have done that the first time. Oops. And you've seen me, that happened before. It's not quite didn't quite turn out the way I want it to be. So just redo it. Only takes a couple of minutes. That still isn't straight. What am I doing? I have no idea what I'm doing. Maybe the paper wasn't cut straight. Okay, third time's a charm, right, ladies? It's probably a good thing I can't see your comments right now. You're like, Mary, there goes another mistake. 1. Flip this over. 2. Yep, third time's a charm. And now I'm just going to center this in between. And I have a little room on each end too to put some kind of embellishment. I pulled out these gold gilded gems. I just think these go so nicely with the You're a Peach suite. So I'm going to add a small one to each end of my banner. And then I'm ready to adhere this to the inside of my card with a couple of dimensionals. Remember, when you add this, the purpose of having something on the inside there is going to be to prop your easel against. So you do want it to be raised, whether it goes up against an embellishment or if you raise a sentiment or other stamped image. That's the whole purpose of it. I want to make sure I have it centered left to right. I'd say that looks pretty good. Something I might also consider is maybe putting a piece of designer series paper under that, but for now I'm going to keep on going. So now I want to make something for the front of this easel that's going to stand up higher than that fold. So I'm going to look to my stamp set and my dies. I'm going to cut a piece of, I'm going to use white cardstock, I believe. And I'm going to make this, I believe this is 4 1/4, a little more. So I'm going to cut this to 2 3/4 by 4 inches. Okay. And you can, okay, it looks like that got interrupted. So I was waiting a few seconds to make sure that the live popped back up. So I've made mine 2 3/4 by 4 inches. As I was saying, you can really make this any size you want. There's just a couple of things you need to keep in mind when you're deciding. You need to consider the size of the stamping or whatever it is you want to put on it. And you also need to consider the size because you want it to be able to stand up in place when the easel is propped open, but you also want it to lay flat on your card base to go in an envelope, and you don't want it going beyond the edges of your card. So let's go here. I was thinking of maybe just doing a large peach over here, like so. And then, and it could also, I could also make the leaves go the other direction if I wanted, either way. And the other option would be to put some peach blossoms on the paper as well. So I think I'm going to go ahead and stamp some peaches on here. Now you've seen me use my sponge daubers to color these, which I'm going to do again. Ugh. Come on, Mary. So I've got Calypso Coral and I've got Pale Papaya. These are the same colors I used a couple of weeks ago when we did the other center easel card. And I'm going to pull out my sponge daubers as well. And let's see, I need Calypso Coral here. There we go. I opened this upside down the other day, the wrong way, and I had quite the mess because they all fell out. So I had to mark top and bottom. Do not open this side. So little tip that might help you there. So I'm going to, and let me grab a bit of cardstock to use as scrap paper because I'm going to stamp a few of these big peaches. So I'm picking up some Calypso Coral with my sponge dauber and I'm just going over that peach stamp. So I've stamped it first. You want to kind of tap it on your Simply Chamois before going back in. I'm going to tap it on my Pale Papaya ink, and then again use my sponge dauber to add a small amount of the Calypso Coral to that stamp. And remember, they don't have to turn out the same. Any peaches that you buy at the store or the farm market, or you pick yourself, they're all different, right? So don't worry about them looking exactly the same. They really shouldn't look exactly the same. Pale Papaya, and then more of the peach. And you just want to tap that second color lightly. So I'm really just tapping very lightly for the with the Calypso Coral color. When you're stamping randomly, I'll say a random pattern of something on cardstock, you do want to go off of the cardstock or paper that you're stamping on. Almost so that it looks like you've made your own designer series paper. Looks more authentic, I guess, if you stamp beyond the edges. I'm going to put just a little bit there as well. It is important to tap off in your Simply Chamois, or to clean your stamp in between, so that you're not contaminating the lighter color ink pad with the darker color you've added to your stamp. All right, I think that looks pretty good. And I'm going to close these up. And then I'm going to use Pear Pizzazz and some Old Olive for the leaves. And you can do the same method with the sponge daubers, or you can just stamp the leaves plain. Let's see, where's my Old Olive here? There's my leaves. I'm just going to tap a tiny bit of Old Olive along a couple of the edges and even the stem. And it's okay that the peaches and leaves overlap. Again, think about what it would look like if the peaches were in a basket or on a tree. Tap that into my Simply Chamois, ink it up with Pear Pizzazz, and add a bit of Old Olive ink with my sponge dauber. So you can see with this technique, you're repeating steps quite a bit to get the effect that you want. You could have done I could have stamped only once and maybe put a sentiment on the other side and stamped a peach to use to prop up my easel. Just, whatever variation you think of. I think that looks pretty good now. Okay. Let me put these away, pull them shut. It helps to clean up as you go. I used to just toss everything to the side or toss it on the floor, but it really does help maintain my sanity and keep me motivated to just keep on creating and working if I clean up as I go. Are you like that? Are you a clean up as you go person, or are you somebody who likes to just leave it all to the end? You know, I did decide this is cut. Here, I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this just a little bit smaller, I decided. So I'm going to cut a piece of the Balmy Blue cardstock, 4 inches by 2 3/4. And I'm going to make this one just a little bit smaller. I'm going to make it 3 3/4 by, that would be 2 1/2. So that I can keep that same size I originally planned, but now mat it. And I think that will look a little bit nicer if it's matted on the Balmy Blue cardstock. And we're almost finished with this variation on the center easel card. Got a little fuzzies, some fuzzies on the edge of my cardstock, which tells me that it's time for a new blade in my paper trimmer. Okay, that's the best indication of when it's time to put a new blade in your paper trimmer. And I happen to have some right here to do that. Now I'm ready to prop this up right here. Okay. Before I do that though, I feel like it needs something more. And I'm going to, I think I know just the thing. I was thinking I'm going to put just a little bit of Designer Series paper there. Not sure what I want. Maybe that. I just feel like it needs a little something and I can't figure out what. You know, I'm going to hold off. You all think about that. I'm leaning towards doing something like this, just putting even something more narrow than that. Oh, you know what? I know what I'll do. Sometimes I give myself too many choices with embellishments, but I think this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to tie this metallic edge ribbon, the silver edge ribbon, around that piece and tie a little bow. And I think that will do it for me. Yes, perfect. I pulled this out for another project earlier, but I'm glad I still had it sitting out because I glanced at that and I thought that might be just the perfect thing to finish this off. I'll play with this bow a little bit till I get it looking good. Just want a small bow. Sometimes the small bows are harder to make than the large bows. Trim up my ends. And I'm going to, okay, here's a trick. I know I want my ribbon and my bow on this side of my cardstock, but my bow is kind of not going the direction I want it to. I want it facing more of that cardstock. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to flip this over and see if I like that better. You know, make your bow so that you can slide it on and off. And I'm not even sure that this is going to do the trick for me. Maybe if no, I'm not liking it. I might have to slide it over to the other side because I feel like the direction of the bow is going to look better on that side. So just a little tip. Sometimes people are like, oh, you make the perfect bows. They're just in the right place. Well, typically they don't all turn out perfect the first time, do they? And I have learned over the years, play with those loops and tails of your bow until you get the size exactly the way you want it, and play with the placing and position of your bow by doing some of the things I just showed you now. Okay, I think I like that. Yes, I like this better. Wasn't what I envisioned, but I like it better than what I envisioned. Okay, so now I'm ready to place this on that easel. And remember, we only want adhesive on this bottom portion, and we want to make sure we don't put any adhesive any other place. So I'm putting some just below the fold in the center there because I know the cardstock layer and the layers will cover that. Plus I'm putting some at the bottom half, less than bottom half, because I want to be sure I don't go above that half mark. And this will take care of where I place that. I hope I didn't go too high with my glue. I'm going up a little high here. Yeah, push that down nicely. And there's my finished card. What do you think? I'm going to tilt it a little bit so you can see it a little better. This is the view that I'm seeing from my craft table. This is the top, and you can even see how it comes together on each end. All right. And of course it folds flat. It will fit in a business or letter size envelope that you can get at any big box store, any office store. So no worries that it's going to be difficult to find the right size envelope for this. It's not at all. Just your standard business or letter envelope. And I love it. What do you all think? Still trying to get comments to show up on my computer screen. And that is difficult when it doesn't. So I have to flip back and forth. Okay, let's do one more variation of my original center easel card. So once again, I've made myself another template. The original center easel card I made with you was in the horizontal position. This time I'm going to use the same size, but I'm going to make it in the vertical position. So I've created a little template for myself. Let me show you how to cut and make this variation of the center easel fold card. This time I'm going to use Calypso Coral. And you can make two of these at once. I'm just going to, for demonstration purposes, just show you one. But you'll want to score at 5.5, turn to the vertical position, and cut at 4¼ inches. Thanks for so many of you being here today. I'm so happy to have you spending part of your Monday morning with me. And thanks to those of you who shared this video as well. I really, really appreciate it. I'm going to set this card to the side for now, and I'll show you it again before I end the live. But now I want to cut off or cut a 1-inch flap on each side here. So I'm going to go from the bottom front to that center score line, which is at 5.5. So I can cut it up and stop there, or I can stop at the 5.5. Sometimes you might feel like you have more control doing it that way. Line up the etched line on your cutting blade handle or holder with a 5.5 inch mark, and you'll be right on that score line. Push down and cut. Now I'm going to do 1 inch on the other side and do the same thing. Line up those 2 marks, push down, oops, my cardstock moved a little bit when I put the cutting guard down. Push down and cut. Fold those 2 flaps back. Then you're going to want to score this in half. This measures 5.5. So that is 2 3/4 inches that I want to score. And now I've got the base of another center Easel fold card, just like that. The first thing I'm going to do next is cut all of my designer series paper. And I've got some fun ones going here. So I'm going to, let me see here, what was I gonna? I'm going to use this pattern for those center pieces. So remember, this is 5.5 by, what was it? 2 1/4. 5.5 by 2 1/4. So I'm going to cut, and this time I'm going to use small margins. So I'm going to cut 2 1/8 by 5 3/8. Move it over here so you can see better. 5 1/8, or 2 1/8 by 5 3/8. And then I need to cut this in half. So you're getting a little tricky there with the that 1/8 inch. That takes you down to 1/16. So let's see, it's going to be 2 1/2 by 2 1/2 is 5, and then 3/8 would be 6/16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I think I got that right. We'll know in a moment. No, you don't, Mary. 5 3/8. Half of that would be 2 1/2. Seems like that should be right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know. But let's do this. Worse, if my brain is not into doing math today. Oh, there it is. Oh, I didn't split the 16th in half. So worst case scenario, if your brain is not into doing the math on a particular day, you fold it in half. No big deal. Works the same way, right? And then you just cut on that fold. Same result. And that will help you greatly when you're working on those with those halves and 16ths. And if you really hate working on those with those measurements, you just cut at the 1/4 inch marks like I did on the first card. Again, I'm kind of pushing these right to my score line in the center, but then I have that nice little margin all the way around the DSP. But I don't want to go over the fold because I want it to open nicely, just like that, without any crinkles. And then I need I can put some designer series paper here if I want, or I can just leave it closed like this. I am going to, just to make it easy, just add a piece of white on the inside that measures 5 1/4 by 4 inches. And again, this is just to make it easy as far as measuring, but you can also do what I did on that slimline card, measure the center and figure out the piece that you want. But that would be a pretty narrow piece. And I think I'm just going to go like this. You know, this is, I'm showing you this because I want you to understand you don't have to make it harder than it needs to be. If it's easier for you to do something like this that you're used to, do that instead of making all those, you know, cutting all those other small pieces. I'm going to then adhere my flaps down because, as I said, to me, having these flaps be able to open really doesn't serve a purpose for me. But if you think of a purpose, a reason why you want those flaps to open, so be it. You can be inspired by another person's creativity without having to do it exactly like that person has done. There's nothing wrong with making it your own. There's nothing wrong with copying. So this is what I have. And I think I'm going to add some green Designer Series paper strips here. So I need these to be, this is 5 1/2 by 1 inch. So I need 2 pieces that are going to be, let me think, 5 1/2, 5 3/8. Oh, which that is exactly by 7/8 inches. And that 7/8 is just 2 teeny tiny marks from the 1 inch, if you're wondering. And of course, we need 2 of those for the 2 sides. I love that we can make adjustments in size, direction, in order to make variations of a card layout that we already love. And it's very easy to do that. So I suggest you, you give that a try and kind of experiment with that kind of thing. And the more you do it, or just like this, follow my variations on my original card, and I think you'll find that you're really able to add a lot of variety to your card making. All right, now I need to put something up here and then a little something down here as well. So I'm going to go back to my bundle, and I've got all kinds of fun things to make here. And I know it has to be something fairly narrow. I believe what I'm going to do is just make a single large peach, cut it out, die cut it, and then use that on here and put a little sentiment or something here to prop that up. So let me grab some scrap paper. I won't need a lot. I don't really have a small piece, do I? I'll cut this. I have pieces that are too small, I should say. I'm just going to cut some of this. I'll use that same large peach and the same ink colors that I used the first time. Pale Papaya and Calypso Coral. Pull out my daubers once again. I think that's a little too much ink, a little too juicy. I'm actually going to make 2 peaches. cut out both of them. And then I'm going to also do a couple of leaves, as I did before. You're getting the 2-for-1 today with cards here. Since I'm cutting these out, put these on a different piece so I can cut out a peach and a set of leaves at the same time. There. I'll use my mini Stampin' Cut and emboss machine for this. I love the mini because honestly, I do use it much more than my big machine now that I have this one. The reason being, so many of our dies fit in here. I would say the majority of them do. Percentage-wise, I don't know what that would be. 80% maybe? I'm not sure. But I find it to be really handy. Now, of course, if you want to, if you use embossing folders a lot, you will want to have the large machine because it will accommodate all of the embossing folders. We have more of the large standard size than we do the smaller embossing folders. But we do have some that fit in this mini machine. How many of you have the You're a Peach products? Or the Sweet as a Peach bundle? Or the Designer Series paper? To me, it's all gorgeous and I love it all. I, for the first time, have ordered from the Peach Truck, the truck that comes from, brings peaches from Georgia and travels around the Midwest, stopping at different cities and communities. So I'm very excited about that. I've never done it before, and I pick up my peaches at the end of this month. So I invited Andrea, my oldest daughter who lives here in Columbus, to come over that day. And we're going to make some peach recipes. So I'm really excited. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And so I was thinking, what a nice thing to gift other people, your handmade or homemade treats. And then I can make some fun peach tags with this product suite to decorate the peach treats when I give them to my family or neighbors, that sort of thing. All right, so this is my plan. I'm going to put these two peaches on. I want to make sure that when I adhere them, they are both only adhered to this small front flap of the easel. And I'm going to do that with a couple of dimensionals. I'm keeping in mind where I'm putting those dimensionals because I know that these peaches will hang off the edges a little bit. One there. And then one here. I'm going to move this one up over a little bit, and I'm going to move this one up and over a little bit. I still have my leaves to put on. I'm going to adhere these just using a mini dimensional, which will be hidden. Just like that. Is it hidden? I need to scoot it over a little bit. You know what? I might be better off using a glue dot for this part, because I can get it right along the stem there and nobody will be any the wiser. And I do want it to pop up a little bit, so I just layered 3 of the glue dots on there. A little piece of that black on there. I pulled the bottom edge of the leaf over the top of this peach, and I could even put the leaves going the other direction on my peach on the left. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to layer 3 mini glue dots, because that'll give some dimension, but nobody will see these mini glue dots. Oh, I am liking that. What do you think? I'm liking that a lot. Now I need something to keep this easel propped in place. And of course, it's going to flatten out when you fold it. So you'll want people to have a little something there to hold it in place. Of course, there's still plenty of room for you to write a quick message. You can also write a message on the back. It doesn't really matter. Either way, somebody's going to be thrilled to receive a card like this from you. This one says, "Have a peachy day." I'm going to stamp this in green, the Pear Pizzazz, on white. Whoops. And then I'm going to punch it out with my double oval punch. You can use any punch at all that you want, but I think I'm going to use that double oval punch. Thanks for being with me on this Monday morning. I always look forward to my Monday morning Facebook Lives. It's just a fun way to touch base and to get my work week started off on a positive note. So I appreciate you being here. Now we can do that. I'm thinking I might want to add that second layer. So let's see how this looks. This might be too wide, but let's give it a try. I'm actually going to punch this. Oh no, I think that's going to be perfect. I love it. Remember, either you do need some dimensionals so that this is lifted up off the base in order to prop that easel. So I've put dimensionals between the small oval and the large oval. If you want, you can add another layer of dimensionals, but I'm not going to. I'm going to adhere that back layer flat since I have the dimensionals in between. Decide where you want it. The main reason I'm not adding another layer of dimensionals, it would be perfectly fine here, but because I have dimensionals here, that is going to add a lot of thickness. And I don't want to add that much thickness all in one place. I think there's plenty of thickness here. It will still fit in your envelope and go through the mailing at regular stamp price without any additional postage. But if you get too thick, you might be needing to add additional postage because they do consider the thickness of what you're sending. And I love it. What do you think? Ooh, fun, fun, fun. Okay. Today's prize is not going to be one of the cards. Today's prize is actually going to be a small package of designer series paper sampling. I'm going to give a sample of 5 1/4 by 4 inch designer series paper to one person, one of each pattern in here. And then I'm going to give another set to somebody else, and that will be the 3 1/4 by 8 1/4 size that you would use to make a slimline card. So there will be 2 winners, but I'm doing something different today and giving you some samples of the You're a Peach designer series paper for you to make some cards of your own. And I will choose the winners very quickly after this video. And whoever wins those, I simply ask that you make something. It can be these types of cards, or it can be something totally different. You decide. And then just share it to this post so that we all can enjoy your creativity and give you a little round of applause for your own creative project. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for being a part of my Stampin' Piece with Mary Nave family. If you need some assistance with ordering, if you have questions about products, if you would like to earn some free Stampin' Up! Products, or even to join my fabulous team of Mary Stampers, I would love to have you and I would love to help you. Have a great Monday. Make it a great day. Bye-bye.